Hello, this is BJ from Hearns Hobbies, and I will have a tutorial for you today regarding blue stuff. So if you're not familiar with what blue stuff is, it's this. So blue stuff is a thermoplastic, and it's used for molding, or I guess copying parts that you want to replicate. So it's like a silicone mold, or it's a reusable thermoplastic. You drop it into hot water, it goes soft, and then you can mold it around items to replicate. So that's what a packet looks like here. This is actually the 8 bar, and I generally use the smaller packet, which is the 4 bar. We can see how I've used it, and I've got different shapes in there now. So let me show you what I'm doing on my current project. Now the tutorial I have in store for you today, it's not the first time I'm showing you how to use blue stuff. I'm going to be using a UV resin, and I have had a lot of comments about how do I stop the thermoplastic from getting heat damage from thick UV resin as it's curing, because when you're curing UV resin with the 3D or the UV torch, it actually gets very hot, and it can get so hot that it will melt the surface of the blue stuff, and you end up with a not very nice looking mold because it's actually deformed. And I'll show you my little technique for creating something thick like the head, which I wanted to replicate for my project for this raccoon from Machine & Krieger. So I just want the head to fit inside the cockpit there. But this technique I'm going to teach you will also be useful for doing even larger items like the full figure. So anything that's this thick, I guess it's like 5mm plus, if you try to cure that UV resin in one shot, it'll get so hot that it'll easily deform this. But let's start the process. Okay, so here is what I want to copy, this part here, and this is actually what I've already done. So I've used multiple pieces of blue stuff. Let's zoom in here so it gives you a better idea of what I've achieved. Okay, so there is the mold I've created, and you see how it splits across here, and there's a cavity where the head is. So I'll be pouring UV resin into there, and we'll be holding this tight, and then we'll cure it with the torch. Now what I've done previously, here is the original, and here is a copy I've created with that mold I've just shown you, and I've put some primer on it so it's a bit easier to see, because when they come out they're perfectly clear. And you can see how for doing a single very fast copy, it's actually pretty good. I mean, there's a few distortions around here and at the back where the mold meets, but after cleaning that up a little bit, that'll come out a treat. Okay, so let's get into the process. Now let's clear off this stuff here. All right, so we have the mold which I've already created. All right, so we have our mold here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to have a rubber band as well. So this is going to be wrapped around here just to keep this from coming loose. I have my UV resin here. This is a 30mm, so it's a medium-sized bottle, but you can use any size bottle. They all have the quite pointy applicator tip. And I also have my UV curing torch here. All right, so the first steps are to actually fill the mold. So we'll take the cap off my UV resin, and I'll just open this up. Now the tricky part about doing something like this, particularly molds which are quite enclosed, is to be able to pour in the resin without air bubbles getting trapped. And it's around the nose, which is the hardest bit. So I'll squeeze some in here. Just let the UV resin travel to the tip of the bottle. Squeeze it in. Okay, and you'll see it. You can just see the reflection of it there now. Okay, now I can see an air bubble there, and it's about where the nose is. Now you could use a little stick or such, and we're just going to poke this in here. So we'll try to move it around, trying not to incorporate any more air. So a small stick would be easier to swivel around, but I don't actually have one at the moment, so I'll do that just to show you quickly. So I'll close this off, and I'm going to squeeze some more in here. You can see there's an air bubble just sitting on the top there. Now because this is so viscous, it's very hard to break those. You can use a stick to try to break that. And you see if I'm squeezing this, see how it's moving about? It's moving in and out there. Okay, so basically the longer you can stand this upright, the more air is going to actually float on the top, which is a good thing. So we can tap it. That'll help unsettle any air bubbles as well. And I think at this point, I'll just pop the tip in here and try and break that. You see that? That's broken now. And then we'll squeeze some more UV resin. You see how I'm squeezing it along the side of the mold? That actually reduces the amount of air bubbles that'll be created. Okay, so we've got our mold filled now. So it's filled pretty high. You can still see some air bubbles in there. Can't get all of them out because I'm doing a very quick demonstration here, but they'll probably be fine anyway. And I mean, this mold can be used multiple times. So if this particular casting doesn't come out quite the way you like it, you can always easily make another one. Okay, so I'm just tapping it a little bit. And now I'm going to get a rubber band. Let's go out a bit. Get a rubber band now, and we'll just put it around here a couple of times. Just hold the two sides of the mold together. Oh, looks like I have to do another one. And this is quite round, so it's a bit tricky to keep it on, especially when I'm filming now. Nope, let's try again. Do it like this. Like this. And again on this side. Like this. Oh, no, it's all really messy now. Done a real job of that, haven't I? It's all over my fingers. All right. Okay, let's try. Well, you get the idea anyway. So you can put a rubber band around this, it will hold it together. At the moment, I'm just holding it together with my fingers, but I'm going to cure this in some very quick bursts, as then I'm going to put it in the fridge to let it cool down. So there's less chances, if this does get hot, it'll actually get to a temperature that'll melt the blue stuff. All right, so I've got my torch here now. Quick across the top, across the sides, around the front, and then from the bottom. Now what's going to happen here is the resin actually cures faster around the outside rather than the inside. And if I squeeze this, you see how it's still moving. Okay, so it's not fully cured yet. Now what I'll do is I'll go and I'll put it in the fridge and we'll cool down the mold and we'll come back. Okay, so I'll be back in a sec. So it is cooler to the touch now. And you see, so it's still a little bit flexy. And we'll do again the quick cure. So quickly across the top, along the sides, and then across the bottom again. Now if I squeeze it this time, you see how it's solidified even more. So it's not actually, you can't actually see it moving now, but it still will be a liquid on the inside. So I'm going to go back and I'm going to cool it down again, and then we'll hit it one last time and it should be good to go. Okay, so let's hit this 1/3 time. So you can see how it's pretty solid now, but still not fully cured. So let's do an extended cure on it. So you can easily see how the UV torch penetrates through the blue stuff. I think that should be about enough now. Let's have a bit of a touch. Feels pretty firm. It is still sort of, see how it's still a bit squishy? That means it's still a bit soft. Now I do a bit of extended time across here because there's a thicker part of the blue stuff. That's the bottom. And I think that should be enough now. That feels pretty solid. Okay, let's open it up and see what we find. All right, so you can see how the resin has started to cure there. You can see as I'm just releasing the head. So we pop it out. And there we go, there is our replica. And we can see there. So you can see why I primed the other copy I did. But I think with those shadows you can see that that's a pretty good copy. And you'll notice that it's got all the full detail on the front. Nothing's deformed. And that's because I did it in a few different goes. So there's no chance for this resin to get super hot and deform the blue stuff. So hopefully that answers everyone's questions that are on my earlier tutorials. So this is my tutorial on how to mold with blue stuff, which is that, and UV resin, like that, and thick parts that don't actually melt the blue stuff. So do it in a few passes. Obviously, if it's going to be much thicker than this, say if it's like twice this thickness, you probably take twice as long and do, say, 6 passes. And make sure you keep it in the fridge longer or even the freezer. Because the cooler the mold, it'll help dissipate the heat of the resin as it's curing. So there we go. So I hope you enjoyed my tutorial there. So let's just compare that one that I've just done with one that I did earlier and has been primed. So the prime one obviously is a lot easier to see how good the copy is going to be. There we go. So that's going to be happily fitted to my Mac raccoon suit in my next project. And there we go. So I hope you enjoyed that tutorial, and I hope you've learned something more about blue stuff and how to use 3D curing resin and casting your own parts. And these are the thick parts without the blue stuff distorting. So thank you for joining me. If you'd like to see more content like that, please think about subscribing, and I'll see you another time. Thank you.